Progressive magazine exercise number 15, 840 words at the rate 100 word per minute. Be ready, start. The planning process is as it should be under constant review, and we must not feel shy of initiating new approaches to planning perspectives. After 50 years of independence, the tangible benefits of planning are yet to reach the millions of our countrymen living in the remote rural areas. The quality of life presently available to the economically weaker and vulnerable sections of our society, among whom are the scheduled castes and scheduled tribes, needs to be improved without delay. The end result of planning should be monitored and evaluated so as to ensure that there is a noticeable shift in emphasis from the urban to the rural areas and from the better off sections of society to those unfortunate brethren who constitute a silent majority. Only then can we take pride that our planning effort has been realistic and worthwhile. Any effort in the direction I have indicated cannot possibly be fruitful unless the administration which is to implement these socio-economic programs is in tune with the underlying spirit of this planning exercise and responds with sympathy, understanding, and a sense of urgency to the tasks given to it. Only then will the needs of the common man, particularly of the economically weaker and more vulnerable sections of society in the remote rural areas, come nearer solution. After 50 years of independence, inadequate housing, communications, health and medical care, and essential commodities at reasonable prices continue to be beyond the reach of the millions of our countrymen. We need to search our hearts to locate immediate and long-term shortfalls in reaching the benefits of planning to the grassroots of our society. Our planners are now engaged in putting a realistic, result-oriented rural bias into our plans for socio-economic development. The recent announcement with regard to the industrial policy with emphasis on the employment-oriented small-scale industries and the extension of credit facilities to such industries and to small farmers in the agricultural sector is welcome. This is an area where the governors of states could use their good offices at all levels to advise, encourage, and caution those engaged in this gigantic nation building exercise. Our youth are the trustees of posterity and the institutions where we seek to impart to them the values of life and our cultural heritage apart from fitting them out for more mundane duties and responsibilities in later life. Our planners are thinking in terms of providing increased employment opportunities and to tackle the question of both existing unemployment and underemployment in all walks of life. This is a Herculean task. We must therefore at the national level evolve a consensus as to what employment opportunities can be created and what would be the contribution of such an exercise for the national welfare. Only thus can we hope to eliminate the growing discontent in the younger generation who are slowly getting disenchanted with their prospects for the future. I have every hope that we in this country will go in the for mass programs of self-employment so that our youth will learn to seek opportunities for gainful self-employment and thus relieve the pressure in traditional occupations like government services, etc. Our resources are not unlimited, and it is necessary for us to implement urgently a program of austerity and economy wherever possible, eliminate wasteful expenditure, and thus ensure that the maximum benefit is derived out of every rupee of revenue earned. There are, of course, traditionally prescribed methods and practices for dealing with these problems, but in all such matters which ultimately tend to become routine and mechanical, example is better than precept, and there needs to be an awakening of individual conscience if at all we are to achieve the highest standards of moral rectitude and honesty in national life. I have been concerned for some time with our inability to control the price line even in respect of essential commodities, without which life for the common man can become an unbearable burden. Apart from punitive action, it is necessary to enlist the goodwill and cooperation of all sections of society and all those engaged in the production and distribution process to ensure that there is not only the fear of law but also moral restraint, which places an obligation on all those of us who can help to reduce the scarcity of essential commodities and they control their prices. I would particularly refer to lavish expenditure and show of extravagance among certain sections of our society, which in the circumstances of today have no place in our way of life. The family planning programs has unfortunately in the recent past acquired a poor reputation, not because the program is in itself objectionable, but because some of the methods adopted to force the pace have been unethical. Our population growth is, to say the least, alarming, and try as we may, our resources cannot match this increasing pressure of population unless we conscientiously recognize individually and severally the need to restrict our population growth, which will destroy us. Full stop.